Just 1 minute ago, Oprah Winfrey shattered the silence, and the internet, with a shocking revelation that Diddy tried to shut her down. The courtroom gasped, social media erupted, and now the truth is flooding out. What was Diddy so desperate to hide? Stay with us as we break down the 8 jaw-dropping chapters behind the headline that's shaking Hollywood. At 11:48 p.m., a piercing ringtone echoed through the dim corridors of the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. It was a direct line, used only in emergencies. The clerk on night duty answered, half asleep, only to sit bolt upright when the name Sean Combs flashed across the cover letter of the file being uploaded to the system. Diddy's legal team had filed a last-minute emergency injunction, an aggressive, unprecedented move designed to block Oprah Winfrey from testifying the next morning. The document was over 60 pages long and marked highly sensitive. Its cover sheet cited irreparable harm, undue prejudice, and irrelevance of testimony fueled by media manipulation as the core reasons for the injunction. The courthouse staff began scrambling. A special late-night team was alerted, and within the hour, word had quietly reached several court reporters, many of whom had been monitoring the docket for any developments in the ongoing federal case involving Sean Diddy Combs. By 1 a.m., hushed conversations echoed across group chats between legal correspondents and journalists, and outside the courthouse, vans started to arrive. The street was quiet, blanketed by early morning fog, but by 2 a.m., camera crews had begun setting up. Flashbulbs clicked through the darkness as the motion leaked. Screenshots of the front page began circulating on Reddit, followed by a partial PDF uploaded anonymously to a legal whistleblower forum. TMZ was the first major outlet to run with it. Their headline, Diddy Moves to Silence Oprah? Emergency Court Filing Sparks Firestorm, was uploaded at 2:36 a.m. Within minutes, it was picked up by other outlets. CNN posted a breaking alert. BuzzFeed tweeted the document's title. X, formerly Twitter, exploded. The hashtag #LetOprahSpeak began trending globally by 3:15 a.m. By 4 a.m., over 70 reporters and bloggers had converged outside the courthouse. Coffee in hand, wrapped in jackets, they clustered near the steps as more details began to emerge. A few leaked paragraphs from the motion cited potential defamation risks, presumed celebrity bias, and suggested Oprah was intentionally stoking public emotion to discredit the defense. One line, though, would be quoted the most. Given the media footprint and emotional resonance Ms. Winfrey holds over the American public, her testimony, however factual or fabricated, would irreversibly prejudice the outcome of this trial. Legal analysts were quick to criticize the language. CNN's chief legal correspondent called it a veiled insult posing as a legal argument. MSNBC called it desperate. And by sunrise, more troubling details emerged. The motion had not only asked the judge to bar Oprah's testimony, it had requested the court seal any related exhibits she had submitted, including voice memos and email chains. At 6:15 a.m., the judge, the Honorable Melinda Santiago, issued a rare pre-dawn scheduling order. A closed-door hearing would be held at 9 a.m. sharp to determine the validity of Diddy's motion. The public would not be allowed in. Only authorized personnel, the legal teams, and the judge herself would be present. The public, however, was not having it. A protest, initially called via Instagram, began forming outside the building by 7 a.m. Signs reading "We want the truth" and "No one silences Oprah" filled the air. Supporters of Diddy, fewer in number, stood across the street holding signs of their own. Tension built by the minute. By 8:45 a.m., metal barricades were brought in to contain the growing crowd. Oprah's name trended on every platform. Several morning shows cut away from scheduled segments to cover the courthouse scene. The narrative had shifted from a celebrity trial to a constitutional debate, freedom of speech versus legal procedure. Then, a second bombshell. TMZ released 2 more pages of the motion. These referenced a private conversation between Ms. Winfrey and a federal witness, allegedly recorded without consent. That revelation raised alarms across the legal community. Did Diddy's team just admit that such a conversation occurred? Did they possess the recording? Or were they bluffing to trigger doubt about her credibility? Pundits weighed in fast. "She's not just a talk show host," one lawyer said on air. "She's a media empire. You don't file this kind of motion unless you're terrified of what she's going to say." Inside the courthouse, final preparations were being made. Armed guards were stationed at every entrance. Extra security swept the judge's chambers and restricted hallway access. Legal assistants buzzed through corridors, red folders in hand, most refusing to comment. At exactly 9 a.m., Judge Santiago entered the closed hearing chamber. Diddy's legal team, led by famed defense attorney Marcus Lewitt, stood on one side, flanked by advisors and PR representatives. Oprah's legal team sat opposite, noticeably leaner but stone-faced. Lewitt began his argument, leaning heavily on precedent, public perception, and the so-called danger of theatrical testimony. He claimed that Oprah's presence would create a celebrity bias tsunami, skewing the jurors' objectivity beyond repair. He warned that even the potential of Oprah crying on the stand could lead to emotional contamination. Oprah's counsel didn't flinch. They refuted the claims swiftly, pointing out that truth is not beholden to celebrity. More importantly, they hinted at undisclosed material evidence their client would introduce, evidence that would make silencing her not just unconstitutional, but morally indefensible. The judge listened, silent, as both sides concluded. She did not issue a ruling on the spot. Instead, she rose from the bench and adjourned until 10 a.m. At 10:12 a.m., the decision was published via the court's electronic system. Motion to bar testimony, denied. Outside, cheers erupted as word spread. Reporters shouted into phones. Live anchors read the ruling aloud on air. Social media caught fire. And in the distance, a black SUV pulled up to the courthouse steps. Cameras swung around. Protesters turned. Oprah Winfrey had arrived. Her face unreadable. Her mission clear. She was going to speak. At precisely 10:27 a.m., a sleek black SUV pulled to a slow, deliberate stop outside the Los Angeles federal courthouse. The crowd parted like a tide, not from any command, but from collective awe. The door opened, and out stepped Oprah Winfrey, draped in a tailored, all-black suit. No logos. No color. Just quiet authority. Her hair was tied back in a bun. Sunglasses concealed her eyes. The only flash of contrast came from a white envelope clutched in her left hand. A wave of flash photography greeted her, but she didn't flinch. Her security detail, 6 guards in earpieces and black jackets, moved with precision, but there was no panic. Only silence and steps. The kind of silence usually reserved for funerals or verdicts. The crowd had ballooned to nearly 400 people. Some held signs that read "Let Oprah Speak," others chanted her name. The hashtag #LetOprahSpeak had gone from online trend to real-world battle cry. She walked slowly up the stone steps, pausing briefly at the top, not for the cameras, but as if collecting herself. Then, her spokesperson, a composed woman in a gray blazer, stepped forward to address the press. Ms. Winfrey will be entering the courthouse to comply with a federal subpoena issued last week, she said into a sea of microphones. She is here to speak the truth. And she will not be silenced. The statement was brief, but its impact reverberated instantly. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all cut to it live. The footage flooded TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram within seconds. Journalists uploaded headlines from their phones in real time. Oprah enters court, refuses to be silenced. Live at the courthouse. Oprah arrives under guard. Diddy injunction denied. Oprah set to testify today. Inside the courthouse, the temperature felt colder, partly from overactive air conditioning, partly from tension. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but sketch artists were, and they quickly got to work. The courtroom was full. Federal agents sat in the back, stone-faced. Reporters packed into the press box. Diddy sat on the defense side in a dark gray suit, jaw tight, shoulders high. His legal team whispered around him, avoiding eye contact with anyone outside their circle. When Oprah entered, the entire room seemed to shift. She didn't glance at Diddy. She didn't glance at the press. She made eye contact only with the judge as she stepped toward the witness stand. She raised her right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," she said, voice low but crystal clear. The courtroom settled into a stillness so complete, even the sound of pens on paper felt intrusive. The judge, Honorable Melinda Santiago, looked over the rim of her glasses. "You may begin, Ms. Winfrey." The sketch artist's hands moved rapidly. One image would soon go viral. Oprah sitting upright on the witness stand, envelope beside her, palms folded, jaw set. Her eyes, fierce but unreadable. Before she spoke, her attorney passed her a single glass of water. She didn't touch it. The prosecutor began by asking Oprah to confirm her identity, her background, her long-standing career in media and philanthropy. She complied, calmly, professionally. Her responses were brief, factual, but carried weight. Then came the first real question. Ms. Winfrey, can you describe why you are here today? Oprah paused. She took a breath. And then, I am here, she said, because I received a subpoena. I am here because I was asked to tell the truth. And I am here because there are things that have gone unspoken for far too long. Across the courtroom, Diddy's lawyer leaned in toward his client. Diddy said nothing, but his eyes never left Oprah's face. The next 20 minutes would be procedural. Oprah was asked to recount her relationship with Sean Combs, when they first met, the events they had attended together, their past business dealings. She responded with detail, precision, and an icy calm. But it was clear, she hadn't yet opened the envelope. As the judge recessed for a short break, sketch artists released their first images. News outlets began posting them, and within 5 minutes, they had gone viral. One sketch was captioned simply, "The moment before the truth." Outside, the courthouse steps had become a theater of public emotion. Supporters continued chanting. Someone played "Rise Up" by Andrew Day from a portable speaker. Protesters on the opposing side tried to disrupt the atmosphere, but they were vastly outnumbered. Back inside, the recess ended. The judge returned. "Ms. Winfrey," said the prosecutor, "you've brought with you a sealed envelope. Would you like to explain its contents?" Oprah nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. But only once. With that, she reached for the envelope, gently broke the seal, and slid out a thin stack of papers and a flash drive. The courtroom leaned forward in unison. "These," she said, "are transcripts. And this," she held up the flash drive, "is audio. It includes conversations I was part of, and conversations I was warned about. Some were sent to me anonymously. Others were recorded with the full knowledge of those involved." Diddy's team erupted in objections, demanding that the evidence be reviewed in chambers. The judge raised her hand and called for silence. "Mr. LeWitt," she said firmly, "your motion to bar testimony was denied. This court will hear what Ms. Winfrey has to present." The defense fell silent. Oprah remained steady. She returned the papers to the folder but kept the flash drive in her palm. "I was told not to come here," she said finally. "I was advised, repeatedly, that the courtroom wasn't the place for this. But when you've seen what I've seen, and heard what I've heard, the question is no longer whether to speak. The question becomes, how could I not?" The room sat frozen in a moment of collective realization. The woman sitting before them wasn't just a media icon. She was a key, one about to unlock something much darker than the courtroom had anticipated. And no injunction, no PR machine, no empire was going to stop her now. The courtroom settled into an uneasy silence as Oprah adjusted the microphone. She glanced down at her prepared notes, not to read them, but more as an anchor. Then she looked up. Her voice, once soft and composed, now held a firmer, colder edge. "My relationship with Mr. Combs began, professionally, in the late 2000s, she began, her gaze scanning the courtroom but never resting on Diddy. "Over the years, we shared stages, charity events, and industry rooms. But I am not here because of red carpets or photo ops. I'm here because of what happened in Aspen, Colorado, in February 2014. There was a noticeable shift in the room. Prosecutors leaned forward. Members of the press scribbled frantically. Diddy, for the first time, looked visibly tense, his hand twitching against the armrest of his chair. "It was a private retreat," Oprah continued, "a gathering of high-level media executives, investors, and entertainers. Not public. Not recorded. There were NDAs signed at the door, and phones were locked in secure containers. We were told it was a vision summit for the next generation of Black-owned media." She paused. What it turned out to be was something very different. Judge Santiago didn't blink. The stenographer's keys clicked with mechanical urgency. Oprah spoke calmly, deliberately. She described a closed-door meeting during the second night of the retreat. 12 individuals present. Diddy, a venture capitalist from Dubai, 2 retired senators, a music executive, and a now-deceased media mogul whose name sent a chill through the room, Gerald Knox. A man once considered untouchable. A man who, until his sudden death in 2021, had owned the largest private media holding company in North America. I remember Gerald asking whether we could be brave enough to control the narrative. He said that real power wasn't in politics, it was in perception. That night, according to Oprah, the room began discussing off-the-book strategies to consolidate media influence and protect reputations. "Damage management units," she said. Assets disguised as nonprofits. Burner phones assigned to liaisons. At this point, the defense team objected, claiming irrelevance and hearsay. Judge Santiago didn't even look up. Overruled. Continue. Oprah exhaled slowly. She recounted how, at one point during the meeting, she was handed a small black notebook. In it, pages of names, entertainers, journalists, politicians, each with notes, phone numbers, some with symbols beside them. Asterisks, dollar signs, and in a few cases, red exclamation points. I remember asking what the exclamation points meant, she said. I was told, and I quote, they are liabilities. People who could blow the lid off. She placed her palm flat on the witness stand. My name was on that list. No symbols. No dollar sign. Just my name. Another wave of murmurs swept through the courtroom. A U.S. Marshal cleared his throat from the corner. Oprah then described the following morning, how Diddy approached her during breakfast. Calmly. Charismatically. He allegedly said, not everyone in that room is built for the weight we carry. Some people just talk. Some of us actually move things. She had smiled, she admitted, because she didn't know how else to react. I remember thinking, this isn't networking. This is shadow architecture. The envelope she had brought earlier was now passed to the court clerk. The judge accepted its contents, emails, scanned pages from the notebook, and a typed-out version of the guest list from the retreat. Several names were redacted. Several were not. I didn't keep those items because I wanted to. I kept them because something in me said, one day, this will matter. The prosecutor nodded, satisfied. Then came a more pointed question. Ms. Winfrey, did you ever witness Mr. Combs discuss illegal activity during these meetings? A sharp inhale swept the room. Yes, she said. The defense launched another objection, this time louder, sharper, arguing this was speculative and defamatory. Again, the judge rejected it. Oprah then told the court about a private conversation she overheard between Diddy and the music executive, taking place in a hallway off the main conference area. Their voices were low but urgent. She claimed she heard phrases like clean the ledger and that Dubai money has to stay buried. At the time, she didn't know what it meant. In hindsight, she believed it referred to offshore accounts and illicit financing deals. There was a long silence. The judge asked Oprah if she could clarify what she meant by clean the ledger. She replied, in media speak, it can mean erasing debts. In business speak, it means hiding liabilities. In criminal speak, it means removing witnesses. Gasps. Audible ones. The gallery buzzed with shifting chairs and muffled responses. Diddy sat still, but his foot tapped under the table. Oprah's tone never wavered. There were things discussed in that house that made my skin crawl. I didn't have proof then. But I do now. And that's why I'm here. She added that the flash drive she submitted included not just audio clips but scanned notes she made in secret after the 2014 retreat. She hadn't shared them publicly until now. I didn't go public because I feared retaliation. And I was warned, explicitly warned, not to cross certain lines. But I believe we are past the point of secrets. The judge asked whether she had ever spoken to Diddy about what she heard. No. Because you don't confront fire while holding gasoline. There were no further questions from the prosecution. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Santiago called a recess for lunch. But the mood had shifted permanently. Sketch artists captured Oprah's silhouette on the stand, enveloped in harsh courtroom lighting like a figure etched in bronze. On social media, the headlines ran wild. Oprah drops bombshell about secret 2014 meeting. Media mogul Gerald Knox named in shocking testimony. You don't confront fire while holding gasoline, Oprah's MIC drop moment. Back in the hallways, Diddy's team whispered intensely, while federal agents began whispering to each other, eyes narrowed, posture alert. Something was brewing. And deep in a locked evidence room, the contents of Oprah's flash drive began to upload into the court's encrypted system. The history they tried to hide? It was now coming to light, one revelation at a time. The courtroom reconvened at 1:42 p.m. The tension hadn't lifted during the recess. In fact, it had only deepened. News vans were stacked 2 rows deep outside the courthouse, and inside, the temperature felt cooler, as if the very walls had absorbed Oprah's earlier testimony. When Oprah returned to the witness stand, she carried no papers this time, only the flash drive, which she set gently on the edge of the wooden railing in front of her. It glinted under the fluorescent lights, unassuming, yet unmistakably heavy with implication. The prosecutor stood and addressed her with care. Ms. Winfrey, prior to today, did you receive any communication urging you not to testify?
Oprah didn't hesitate.
Yes, I received several. What form did those communications take? Phone calls, voicemails, a handwritten letter, and an offer.
The court stirred. Even the judge looked up from her notepad.
Oprah adjusted the microphone again, calm but resolute. The first message came just 2 days after I received the federal subpoena. It was a phone call from someone I'll refer to as a mutual associate, someone I've known for nearly 20 years.
They weren't aggressive, not threatening, but very clear in their intent.
She glanced toward the defense table, not at Diddy, but at the second chair, where a well-known entertainment lawyer sat, stone-faced. They told me, this isn't about guilt or innocence.
It's about legacy. Yours. His. Everyone's.
Don't set fire to the house to prove there's a mouse. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge gave a brief warning. No outbursts. The prosecutor nodded and gestured for her to continue. Oprah leaned slightly forward.
I didn't respond to that call.
The next day, I received a manila envelope. It contained a typed letter with no signature. It stated that testifying would only add confusion and damage institutions that empower our communities. The last line read, "There are better ways to serve the truth." The defense rose to object on grounds of unverifiable evidence, but the judge motioned for silence.
I still have the letter, Oprah added.
It's been submitted to federal authorities. What was the nature of the offer you mentioned? The prosecutor asked next. Oprah reached into her blazer pocket and withdrew a folded note, photocopied and logged as evidence already.
She didn't read it aloud.
Instead, she looked directly at the jury. I was offered $10 million, she said. Complete silence. In the form of a philanthropic investment into a literacy initiative I've run since 1997.
No strings on paper. But the message was clear.
Delay the testimony.
Withdraw support for the investigation.
And, quietly, the money would be routed through 3 separate donor foundations. The prosecutor approached the evidence table and held up a document for the record, routing information traced by financial analysts. 3 shell entities, one based in Belize, one in Switzerland, and one in Florida, all with prior links to companies Diddy's empire had invested in. And your response to that offer? Oprah met his eyes and said plainly, the truth will speak louder than any check. The courtroom broke its silence, not in noise, but in stillness.
It was a different kind of moment. Not just damning. Not just scandalous. It was personal.
Every person in the room could feel it. The judge asked if the court should now hear one of the recordings submitted via the flash drive. Yes, said Oprah. There's one in particular you should hear. The courtroom technician inserted the drive into a secure laptop and pressed play. What followed was audio, grainy but unmistakable. A male voice, smooth, practiced, urgent.
She's a monument. You don't push a monument. You nudge it. You make it think the wind is doing the work.
You understand. Another voice responded, less confident. You sure she's not gonna flip?
We don't give her a reason to. That woman's seen more than anyone.
And if she talks, this whole damn system caves in on itself. It was unclear who the voices belonged to, but speculation had already begun.
One sounded like a well-known record executive. The second?
Anonymous, but the courtroom buzzed with suspicion. Oprah sat still as the recording ended. Her face betrayed nothing. The judge asked the prosecution if they could confirm the authenticity of the recording. It has been verified by 2 independent forensic audio analysts, the prosecutor said. While the voices have not been officially matched to individuals, the data trail leads back to a secure voicemail system associated with Mr. Combs' Los Angeles office.
At that, the defense demanded an immediate side-by.
Judge Santiago allowed it, and the attorneys approached the bench. They whispered intensely, but the expressions on their faces told the story. They had just been caught off guard, and deeply so. After 2 minutes, the judge returned to the record.
Motion to strike the recording is denied.
It stands as entered into evidence.
The courtroom exhaled.
Returning to the witness stand, Oprah offered one final statement for the day's session. I have no interest in vendettas. I have no interest in spectacles. I was silent for years, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. Disbelief that people I once broke bread with would ever try to weaponize their power in the dark while smiling in the light. She turned, just slightly, in Diddy's direction.
Mr. Combs and I once shared a stage to promote youth mentorship.
We once spoke about empowering the next generation. I now realize that some people use that phrase as a shield, when all they really want is control. The judge, moved by the tone, chose to end the day's testimony there. She announced that court would resume the next morning with cross-examination by the defense.
Reporters raced outside to broadcast what had just happened. Twitter was ablaze with quotes. The phrase, "the truth will speak louder than any check," became an instant slogan. Memes popped up within the hour. Protesters began holding signs with it in Sharpie ink outside the courthouse.
CNN labeled it, "The moment Oprah went nuclear." Online, whispers of federal protection began circulating, suggestions that Oprah might be placed under surveillance for her safety. Unconfirmed, but increasingly plausible.
And in Diddy's camp? Silence. No press statement. No spin.
Just a man, sitting behind a defense table, watching the empire he built begin to tremble.
The next morning, the atmosphere in the courtroom had changed.
What once felt like the usual theater of celebrity scandal now held the tension of something far more profound. The air buzzed with a quiet anticipation, no longer just curiosity, but consequence. Diddy arrived earlier than expected, flanked by 3 attorneys and 2 private security guards. He wore a deep navy blue suit, no tie, eyes shielded behind dark aviators. For the first time, there was no swagger in his stride.
No head nods. No smiles. Just silence.
He took his place at the defense table, removed his sunglasses, and locked eyes on the empty witness stand, where Oprah would soon return. Oprah entered moments later through a side door, again in black, her expression as unreadable as the day before.
She carried no papers. No electronics. Just herself. The court rose briefly.
When the judge took her seat, proceedings resumed. The defense attorney, Marcus Lewitt, approached the stand for cross-examination. He straightened his blazer, forced a polite smile, and began. "Ms. Winfrey, you've presented powerful testimony, no doubt compelling to the public. But let's focus on your specific claims regarding Mr. Combs." Oprah nodded once, calm. "You allege that he made, or at the very least, authorized, attempts to dissuade you from testifying." "I stated that a coordinated effort took place. Whether he personally approved it is for investigators to determine.
I shared what I received.
What I know."
Lewitt pressed on.
"Do you have direct proof that Mr. Combs sent the envelope, the letter, or made the phone calls?"
"No."
"I have circumstantial proof that individuals connected to his enterprises did. Individuals acting of their own accord, perhaps. I can't speak to their motivations, but their timing was precise, their language, consistent, and their objective, clear." Throughout the exchange, Diddy remained stoic. But those watching closely could see it. The twitch in his cheek, the way his hands stayed clasped tightly together beneath the table, as if holding something in.
Lewitt shifted tactics.
"Ms. Winfrey, isn't it true that you and Mr. Combs have had complicated business relations in the past? A few ventures that didn't pan out as hoped."
Oprah smiled faintly. "Welcome to media," she replied. Some in the gallery chuckled quietly. Lewitt nodded, pushing forward.
"So you'd agree there was tension?" "There were differences in approach. But I've worked with dozens of people over 40 years. I've never once had to take the stand against one of them, until now."
A pause.
Then she added, "Tension doesn't buy burner phones."
Diddy finally looked up. His jaw clenched visibly. Lewitt's smile faltered. He moved to discredit her further.
"You testified that you overheard a conversation in 2014 involving alleged illegal activity.
But you didn't report it then.
Why wait nearly a decade?"
"I wasn't subpoenaed then.
And to be clear, what I heard wasn't enough, until patterns began to emerge.
Until more voices came forward.
Until whispers turned into files. You're telling this court that you sat on knowledge of potential crimes for 9 years. I'm telling this court that the climate has finally changed enough for me to speak without being destroyed for doing so."
For the first time, Lewitt hesitated. There was no easy comeback to that.
The judge intervened gently. "Mr. Lewitt, please stay on course."
He nodded and stepped back.
"No further questions at this time, Your Honor." The judge looked to the prosecution. "Any redirect?" The prosecutor declined, not needing to reinforce what was already devastating. Judge Santiago dismissed Oprah from the stand. She stood, nodded once, and left the room without another glance at Diddy.
But all eyes turned to him now. The court entered a brief recess. That's when it happened. A small but powerful leak.
A court staffer, later confirmed to be under internal investigation, had shared a single screenshot with a journalist outside. It wasn't major, but it was enough. A freeze frame from internal courthouse surveillance showed Diddy whispering furiously to his lawyers during Oprah's testimony the day before. The caption read, "We need to shut this down now." By the time court reconvened, the image had already spread across Twitter, Instagram, and online news portals. Inside the courtroom, Diddy's demeanor cracked ever so slightly.
He fidgeted with his pen, adjusted his cufflinks.
Whispers circled through the gallery as his defense team passed him folded notes at a rapid pace. A rumor emerged, first quietly, then louder. Diddy had asked about the legality of leaving the country. The judge, unaware of the outside chaos, addressed the room. "We will now enter submissions of physical evidence previously mentioned."
A marshal walked a small hard drive to the court technician.
When connected to the screen, it revealed security footage from one of Diddy's private studios in Los Angeles. The footage, low resolution and timestamped 3 weeks before the subpoena, showed staff shredding documents in the early hours of the morning. Stacks of papers, placed in a secure bin, shredded with urgency. A voice could be heard off-camera saying, "Clear all files with her name.
Clear it now."
The prosecution claimed the voice matched a known associate of Diddy's legal affairs division.
The defense scrambled.
They called it routine operational housekeeping. But the timing made that argument laughable. As the video ended, Diddy shifted again.
His face had gone pale. He leaned to his lead attorney and whispered furiously. His mouth moved faster than before.
Observers noted how visibly rattled he appeared.
And then the judge announced a 10-minute break.
In those 10 minutes, everything shifted. A source close to the federal prosecution leaked that they were exploring international flight risk protocols. Another journalist posted that a freeze order had been quietly filed on Diddy's offshore holdings. His PR team, up until now hyperactive, had gone completely dark. Inside the courtroom, he sat alone at the defense table, his team huddled behind him in whispered panic. His hands, once steady, were now trembling slightly.
His empire wasn't crumbling. It was convulsing.
And all because the one person he thought would never speak, did. The court had barely recessed for lunch before the world outside erupted. By 12:03 p.m., #Oprah exposes Diddy was the #1 trending topic on X in 14 countries. By 12:27, it reached #1 globally. Across Los Angeles, digital billboards that usually advertised luxury watches and energy drinks now flashed rolling news banners, breaking, "Oprah's bombshell court testimony rocks Hollywood."
Cable news went into frenzy mode.
CNN interrupted its midday programming with wall-to-wall analysis. MSNBC opened with the Chiron Oprah's stand. What did Diddy know? Fox News took a different tack. Oprah's weaponized celebrity, or the last truth teller. Regardless of the angle, one thing was clear, this wasn't just celebrity gossip.
This was a reckoning.
Back inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Oprah had been dismissed.
Diddy remained seated.
His attorneys whispered, gestured, even argued among themselves. Outside, a swarm of reporters rushed the courthouse steps for any comment from his team. They got none. No press conference.
No statements. Not even a denial tweet. That silence only amplified the firestorm.
Within the hour, several entertainment industry power players began quietly unfollowing Diddy on social media.
It didn't go unnoticed.
Fans compiled lists, tracking the exodus in real time. Celebrities who had once partied with him, collaborated with him, or sat beside him at award shows suddenly went radio silent.
The fallout wasn't just digital.
By 2 p.m., Revolt TV, a company Diddy helped build, saw its stock plunge 14%. An emergency board meeting was leaked via a whistleblower who shared an internal memo suggesting Diddy take a leave of absence, effective immediately, to preserve brand integrity.
The memo was never meant for public eyes.
But in this climate, nothing stayed hidden for long. By 2:45 p.m., Oprah's OWN network released a concise, composed statement.
Ms. Winfrey stands by the truth she shared under oath.
She will have no further comment at this time, except to say, silence was never an option. That sentence alone triggered a second viral wave. The quote was screen-printed onto T-shirts within hours. Activists, fans, and celebrities alike reposted it, each adding their own context. Ava DuVernay, Taraji P. Henson, and even Reese Witherspoon posted solidarity messages using the hashtag #SilenceWasNeverAnOption. Meanwhile, Diddy's empire began to unravel. Bad Boy Records quietly removed several promotional materials involving his likeness. Ciroc, the liquor brand he famously partnered with, issued a terse statement that they were reviewing all current endorsement partnerships. One entertainment lawyer, speaking off the record, said, "The PR industry is doing triage. You have a man with a billion-dollar legacy trying to stop a tidal wave with a bucket. It's already too late." At 3:20 p.m., TMZ published surveillance stills from the earlier courtroom video showing staff shredding documents. They included close-ups of hands, timestamps, even redacted facial recognition data, an unprecedented move.
The story headline read,
"Exclusive, inside Diddy's studio. Document destruction days before Oprah subpoena."
It was brutal.
Federal prosecutors refused to comment, but insiders leaked that more subpoenas were being prepared for Diddy's assistants, legal team members, and even several of his former business partners. Then came the petition. At 4:12 p.m., a Change.org petition titled "Federal Protection for Celebrity Whistleblowers" launched. It called on the U.S. Department of Justice to offer protective measures for any high-profile individuals who chose to testify against powerful figures in the entertainment industry.
Within 1 hour, it had over 150,000 signatures. By evening, the court building had transformed into a protest zone. On one side, Oprah supporters.
On the other, a dwindling crowd defending Diddy, mostly diehard fans. Police erected additional barricades as tensions rose. A chant rang out from the pro-Oprah crowd. "Tell the truth. Burn the mask." The phrase would be on protest signs, murals, TikToks, and even magazine covers by week's end. In response to the chaos, security at the courthouse doubled overnight. Armed guards now escorted witnesses to and from the building. Oprah, according to sources, had already been advised by federal agents to temporarily relocate for her safety. Helicopters tracked her movements from the courthouse to a secure location. By 6 p.m., the entertainment world had split into three groups: those who publicly supported Oprah, those who said nothing, and those scrambling to scrub any photos, contracts, or business history with Diddy from their portfolios. Netflix, once home to a Diddy-backed documentary series, quietly removed it from its featured list. Spotify added disclaimers to a number of podcast episodes featuring him. Major award organizations began discussions behind closed doors about rescinding Lifetime Achievement Awards. Even former collaborators were shifting their tone. An anonymous producer who worked with Diddy in the late 2000s told Rolling Stone, "There were always whispers. There were always rooms you didn't want to walk into alone. I'm just glad someone finally said it out loud." By 7:45 p.m., the Washington Post ran a headline that would become definitive. Oprah didn't just testify, she set fire to the machine.
But perhaps the most chilling development came late that evening.
A video was leaked, grainy, night vision, and shaky, but clearly showing what appeared to be security personnel escorting someone out of a back door at Diddy's Holmby Hills mansion. The clip, supposedly taken 2 days earlier, was uploaded to an encrypted forum and then reposted to Reddit. It carried the caption, "Last-minute exit."
Theories exploded. Had Diddy fled? Was he still in LA?
Was he preparing to be arrested?
Federal agents refused to comment.
His legal team issued a 2-word statement, "No comment."
And Oprah? She remained unseen for the rest of the day. No more public statements. No more appearances. But the damage was done.
In just 24 hours, the empire of Sean Combs went from untouchable to unsteady. A kingdom built on music, deals, and celebrity clout now found itself rotting from the inside. And as Oprah's voice echoed in newscasts and social feeds, the question wasn't whether others would come forward. It was, who's next? It dropped at 6:04 a.m.
No warning. No teaser.
Just a post on an anonymous whistleblower forum titled, simply, "He said she's not untouchable, listen." Attached was a 27-second audio file. Within 15 minutes, it was everywhere. The voice, low, unmistakably male, was smooth, sharp, and unmistakably familiar. A voice millions had heard on records, in interviews, on award show stages.
It wasn't just a voice. It was Diddy's voice. "She's not untouchable. I don't care what people think. She wants to make this public? We can make it private. Shut her down. Quiet.
You know what to do."
No background music. No edit. No intro or outro.
Just raw, incriminating venom.
The clip exploded.
Reddit threads piled up by the second.
Twitter X was flooded with hashtags. She is not untouchable. Did a tape. Justice for Oprah. And perhaps most chilling of all, you know what to do. By 7 a.m., CNN confirmed that 2 independent forensic audio labs had analyzed the clip overnight and deemed the voice highly likely to belong to Sean Combs. The cadence, inflection, and phrase structure all matched archival footage. There was no music or ambient noise to hide behind. Just words and intent. In a rare morning press briefing, the U.S. Attorney's Office confirmed that the voicemail had been submitted into evidence as supplementary material. Though the source of the leak remained unknown, prosecutors were not interested in how the public got it. They were only focused on what it proved. At 8:15 a.m., Oprah's spokesperson issued a quiet but potent statement. Ms. Winfrey is aware of the recording. She has no comment, because the truth speaks for itself. That quote was instantly converted into 1,000 graphics and shared by millions. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team was in full-blown panic mode. Inside his mansion, a war room of lawyers, PR experts, and image consultants huddled together on urgent Zoom calls, desperately strategizing. Every draft statement sounded hollow. Every option looked worse than the last. By 9 a.m., the damage had fully metastasized. Revolt TV removed Diddy from all branding. 3 sponsors cut ties within the hour. His vodka partnership collapsed. Multiple artists released statements distancing themselves from him, some even condemning his alleged actions outright. But it didn't stop there. Federal agents were spotted outside several of Diddy's properties across Los Angeles and Miami. Though no official raid was confirmed, rumors of subpoenas being hand-delivered to employees began spreading fast. Inside the courtroom, the energy was nuclear. The leaked voicemail was played in open court. The prosecution stood confidently. The defense sat in stunned silence. For the first time in the trial, Diddy looked shaken, not merely annoyed, but physically unsettled. He rubbed his forehead. He bit the inside of his cheek. His eyes darted back and forth, as though trying to find an exit where none existed. Prosecutors made it clear. This recording is not only a damning reflection of Mr. Combs' attitude, it's a potential act of obstruction. The word obstruction rang out like a warning shot. Crossing arms and glances between federal agents made one thing clear. The trial was no longer just about what Oprah knew. It was now about what Diddy did to stop her from sharing it. One juror reportedly mouthed the words, "Oh my God," after the audio ended. The stenographer paused twice to regain composure. Diddy's lead attorney, Marcus LeWitt, requested an immediate recess. It was granted. During the break, reports began to surface that internal messages from Diddy's legal team had been hacked. Though unverified, screenshots allegedly showed frantic messages discussing how to stall Oprah's timeline and delay upcoming evidence. Even if fabricated, the perception was lethal. At 11:37 a.m., Oprah reappeared, surrounded by federal security, now noticeably armed. Her face was calm. But a new detail stood out. She was now wearing a bulletproof vest beneath her tailor jacket. The courtroom fell dead silent. Her presence was less about testimony now and more about symbolism. The woman who had once ruled daytime television was now the face of a modern truth crusade, one risking everything to dismantle a system of intimidation, silence, and power. Outside, the crowd had swelled. Protesters held signs that read, "Oprah, we hear you. Power doesn't equal innocence. She is untouchable now." As she took her seat on the witness stand once more, the judge addressed the courtroom. This court recognizes the significance of the evidence presented. Let it be known that efforts to suppress the truth, be it through legal manipulation or personal intimidation, have no place here. It wasn't just a statement. It was a line in the sand. The prosecution then formally submitted the leaked voicemail into evidence, backed by both timestamp data and geolocation metadata from a backup server in New Jersey. The drive on which it was found had been under federal monitoring for unrelated reasons. Serendipity or strategy, it didn't matter now. The defense tried one last Hail Mary. They claimed the voicemail was part of a larger, manipulated conversation taken out of context. They argued it was rhetorical, dramatic, and intended as a joke between colleagues. But no one laughed. Not the judge. Not the press. And certainly not the public. By noon, nearly every major platform had updated its headlines. Diddy caught on tape, she's not untouchable, New York Times. Voicemail fallout, prosecutors now exploring witness tampering charges, ABC News. Oprah stand, Diddy's fall, The Guardian. The narrative was no longer in Diddy's control. In fact, it never had been. By 2 p.m.,
Online petitions had reached over 1 million signatures demanding justice, not just for Oprah, but for anyone silenced in the entertainment world. Rumors swirled that 3 more witnesses were now willing to come forward. And Oprah? She left the courthouse just before 4 p.m. under tight escort. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. But the look in her eyes said enough. The storm she walked into? She was the lightning. They set up the podium just after dawn. A single microphone. A plain blue backdrop. No branding. No sponsors. No logos. Just the seal of the United States Courthouse, stitched onto a banner flapping quietly in the early morning breeze. The world waited. It was 8:55 a.m. in Los Angeles, and for the first time in nearly a week, the courthouse steps were quiet. Not empty, but still. Hundreds of reporters lined the barricades. Fans and activists clutched handmade signs, their chants replaced with expectation. At exactly 9 a.m., the doors opened. Oprah Winfrey stepped out, flanked by federal security, her legal team just behind her. She wore gray today, not black. Her eyes scanned the crowd, her shoulders square. She looked like someone who had carried a secret for too long and finally set it down. She took her place at the podium. The flashes began. The murmurs silenced. Then she spoke. No one is above accountability. That first line, clear, unwavering, rippled across every screen in the country. Cameras caught every syllable, every blink, every pause. She didn't read from a paper. She didn't fumble. Her words were practiced, not rehearsed. Heavy, but not bitter. For years, she continued, we have operated under the illusion that some names are too powerful to question, that some rooms are too closed to enter, and that some truths are too dangerous to say out loud. She looked out across the media, her old world, and continued. I was one of those people who believed silence could be noble, that by protecting others, I was protecting something greater, our culture, our legacy, our future. But silence is not noble when it protects deception. Silence is not strength when it covers harm. A wave of applause began from the crowd behind the barricades. She raised her hand gently. It stopped. I sat in that courtroom not for vengeance. Not for attention. I sat there because I was asked to speak. And I answered that call with what I know. What I've seen. And what I could no longer carry alone. Her voice wavered just slightly, but her body held firm. In the days since I testified, I've received messages from across the world. From survivors, from whistleblowers, from people who said they felt seen for the first time. I thank you. And I stand with you. She paused again. Cameras zoomed closer. Reporters leaned forward. I have officially submitted all of my evidence, notes, recordings, and documentation to the appropriate federal authorities. From this moment on, my part in the legal process is complete. A flurry of microphones leaned in, desperate for more. She gave them none. But my responsibility, as a public figure, as a storyteller, and as a human being, does not end here. Then came the news that would make global headlines. In the coming weeks, I will be sitting down for a one-on-one interview. Not for spectacle. Not to rehash what has already been said under oath. But to create space, for others, for context, and for healing. This will be a conversation, not a confession. A reckoning, not a revenge. She didn't announce the platform. She didn't name a date. But the title had already been decided. Oprah's final word. The phrase exploded online within seconds. Every outlet scrambled to prepare graphics. Streaming services likely braced themselves for a bidding war. But at that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the silence that followed. The brief hush as Oprah looked directly into the crowd, her eyes steady and almost sad. I didn't ask for this. I never wanted to be at the center of a courtroom drama. But if my presence in that room cracked open a door, then I am proud to have stood in that gap. With that, she stepped back from the podium. No questions. No tears. Just the sound of hundreds of cameras clicking in unison, documenting a moment that already felt historic. By 9:30 a.m., the speech had been replayed on every major network. Within the hour, YouTube uploads of the speech had surpassed 5 million views. Oprah's quote, "No one is above accountability," was printed on everything from t-shirts to billboards. But while Oprah's words traveled the world, Diddy's world collapsed further. His PR firm terminated their contract. His legal team filed motions to delay the case, citing unprecedented media interference. A judge denied them all. That same afternoon, Federal prosecutors filed preliminary charges related to witness intimidation and potential obstruction of justice. While they stopped short of indicting Diddy publicly, sources confirmed that his legal exposure had expanded significantly.
And still, no statement from him. No video.
No press conference.
Just silence. His social media accounts were wiped clean. His personal website redirected to an error message.
Former collaborators distanced themselves further. Music platforms began removing him from curated playlists.
Podcasts he appeared on were quietly edited. Even his fanbase fractured.
What was once a legacy built on hits and hype had now become a cautionary tale of unchecked power and crumbling loyalty. And amid it all, Oprah stood untouched.
Not because she was invincible, but because she was willing to speak when no one else would.
The final image of the day was captured by a freelance photographer stationed far from the crowds. It showed Oprah walking alone down a long marble corridor inside the courthouse, her security behind her, her attorneys trailing.
Her heels echoed off the stone floor. Her head was held high. Her hands were empty. It was the walk of a woman who had finished her part in history and didn't need to say another word.